What's up everyone, and welcome back to my Echoes of Time channel. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button today. Let's get started. How did people keep clean in the Victorian era? Almost every book, movie, and TV show made in the last 100 years romanticizes the Victorian era. Luxurious homes, beautiful clothing, and passionate love affairs are all things of the past. But most of the information we read about these supposedly smart people doesn't talk about where they obtained their water, where they went to the toilet, or when they last took a bath. When you pull off all the lace and silk, you'll see that the Victorians were actually very disgusting. For the most part, indoor plumbing was a pipe dream, and people didn't take baths every day, let alone every week. Because of this, it is not unexpected that many people were sick during the Victorian era. In average, unusual hygiene practices had a bigger effect on women than on males. Let's wake up, hold our noses, and find out the reality about the supposedly pristine Victorians. They used pee to whiten their garments. When washing laundry, Victorians often used more than just soap to clean their clothes. People often used chalk to get rid of oil and grease stains on clothes. Kerosene worked well to get rid of blood and grass stains. People often used milk to get rid of urine smells and stains. Victorians also bleached their clothes with their own pee because it had ammonia in it. They made their own toothpaste out of cuttlefish. People in the middle and upper classes of Victorian England could easily buy toothpaste and toothbrushes, but most working-class people had to make their own at home. You might make your own toothpaste from soot, chalk, or powdered cuttlefish, among other things. In the past, toothbrushes usually featured wooden handles and rough bristles. People who didn't have a toothbrush thought that chewing celery was rough enough to clean their teeth. Their teeth were in even worse shape than their bad oral hygiene. If there wasn't a dentist nearby, people often went to the barber or blacksmith for dental care. They didn't have plumbing inside, but they did have toilets inside. Early indoor toilets, which were often called water closets, were popular because they were easy to use. However, because there was no indoor plumbing, waste often ended up in a big cesspool in the basement. This seemed like a great replacement for chamber pots or outhouses, but the cesspools eventually filled up, and the smell often got into the house. Because of this, night soil men, who emptied cesspools and sold the excrement to farms as fertilizer, became a little business. Laws at the time said that cesspools may only be drained at night since it was too disturbing to do it during the day. Books taught them how to take a bath the right way. When bathing became more common, books were created that told Victorians what to expect from a bath. There was one book that had a lot of toilet recipes for Victorians who were curious and hadn't washed. People were taught not to take a bath for 4 hours after a big meal, just like people in cities believe they shouldn't swim. Also, Victorians were told not to wash their faces when traveling unless they could first filter the water with alcohol or ammonia. One of the most well-known beauty routines included a Russian bath, which entailed washing the face with very hot water followed by very cold water to help keep wrinkles away. Vinegar and eggs were the newest things in hair care. People in the Victorian era were obsessed with hair, but they couldn't have imagined shampoo as we know it today. Women usually broke many eggs over their heads, rubbed them into their hair, and then used a pitcher of water to wash them out. Another popular option was vinegar mixed with water. In fact, many items that had to do with cooking were good substitutes for shampoo. People thought that rum, black tea, and rosemary were all fine things to wash their hair with. They thought that bad smells made people sick. People in the Victorian era thought that bad smells were dangerous, but today they are just seen as unpleasant. The miasma hypothesis, sometimes known as night air, says that cholera and chlamydia can be spread through dirty air. Victorians even blamed the bad smells that filled the streets for the bad health of people living in the poorest sections of London. Florence Nightingale, a famous nurse, also believed in miasma and thought that clean air was linked to healthy patients. In fact, diseases caused by dirty circumstances in industrial areas made bad smells. The medical profession today sees miasma as a fake science because of modern treatment and cleanliness. Women who were menstruating used military-grade bandages. Even though Victorian hygiene had numerous problems, it was the first time in history that most people really cared about how clean women were. Around the same time that disposable pads were made in the late 1800s, an early version of the tampon was also used. Women also learnt that bandages made of wood pulp, which were often used to treat soldiers' wounds, could also be used to cure menstruation. The Great Stink of 1858 was something they experienced. Even modern cities smell different in the hot summer months, But the smell coming from London in 1858 was so bad that the city had to close. People used to throw their trash in the now beautiful River Thames, which used to be the core of London's sewage system. Doctors said that the scent was to blame for the city's widespread disease, and many in London complained about the river's bad smells. In the end, people called the summer of 1858 the Great Stink. It wasn't until the gusts from the River Thames blew towards Parliament that lawmakers took action. In just 18 days, a bill was enacted that would allow for a modern sewage system in London. People thought that tight corsets and lengthy skirts were to blame for the spread of TB. People thought that women's clothing spread TB during the Victorian era. Doctors say that women carried the illness inside the house by accident when their long skirts dragged on the street. People thought the tight corsets that women had to wear were also to blame for tuberculosis since they made it hard for the lungs to work. Looser corsets and taller skirts were utilized to help stop the sickness from spreading. Escort work was banned to avoid the spread of sexually transmitted illnesses. A lot of people had STDs throughout the Victorian era. In London's low areas, escort work was a very common way for women to make a living, even though it was frowned upon by society. Because it was hard to access birth control, these workers often gave their customers sexually transmitted illnesses, STDs, which their wives then spread. The spread of sexually transmitted diseases became a public health issue, and the government made steps to stop it. Men who went to these clubs didn't have to worry about getting in trouble, but women who worked there could go to jail and be compelled to get treatment for STDs. Their favorite hair care product had lead in it. In the middle of the 1860s, Hall's Vegetable Sicilian Hair Renewer became a popular hair care product in Victorian times. The main reason people liked it was that it was said to darken skin, which made individuals look younger. Hall's Hair Renewer employed lead as a bonding ingredient, which was bad because it made the hair darker. Even though the hair renewer did make the hair darker, it was quite bad for it. Eventually, Hall's lowered the amount of lead in their hair renewer, and it was still sold into the 1930s. They used Listerine to clean their floors and get rid of sexually transmitted infections. Jordan Wheat Lambert and Dr. Jordan Lawrence created Listerine in 1879, but it wasn't until 1914 that the mouthwash was available for sale to the general public. As Victorians slowly started to accept modern hygiene, Lambert first tried to offer Listerine as a therapeutic antiseptic. After his invention didn't generate any money, he began to think of new and unusual ways to use Listerine. Before Listerine was sold as a mouthwash, it was marketed as a way to clean floors and get rid of dandruff and gonorrhea. Gerald Barnes Lambert, the inventor's son, made this marketing decision. He also set the stage for the brand's success for the next 100 years.